Imagine this. Constantinople, 523 CE. The crowd gathers in the hippodrome, their cheers echoing like thunder. At the center of the arena stands a woman, Theodora, naked, trembling, a vessel of terror and spectacle. Then the first drop of gold falls, liquid, gleaming, impossibly bright. It slides down her skin, a river of molten beauty and pain. The people gasp in awe, not horror. They're witnessing what they believe is divinity made flesh, but they couldn't have been more wrong. What they saw as divine transformation was something far darker, an execution so twisted that Byzantine historians tried to bury it forever. And for over 1,000 years, they almost succeeded. What you're about to hear isn't mythology, it's history, the kind that was erased, rewritten, and buried beneath marble floors and holy scripts. Tonight, we're unearthing 3 execution methods so deranged they blurred the line between punishment and art. The first, a slow poisoning that turned beauty into madness. The second, a method so breathtaking it was called merciful. And the third, well, that one will make you question whether death was truly the end. By the time we're done, you'll understand why these stories were buried for 14 centuries, and how one discovery in 1982 shattered everything historians thought they knew about Roman and Byzantine justice. So, step into the arena, smell the incense, hear the roar of 50,000 voices, because what's about to unfold is history's most beautiful nightmare. The year is 312 CE. The Roman Colosseum trembles under the sound of chanting. But this isn't a gladiator match. There are no lions, no duels, no sword fights. This crowd has come to witness something far more exquisite and far more horrifying. Between 200 and 600 CE, both the Roman and Byzantine empires perfected the art of public execution, not as punishment, not even as deterrence, but as performance. They discovered a terrifying truth. People would tolerate horror if it was beautiful enough. So they turned death into theater, flesh into sculpture, pain into spectacle. Regular crucifixions, boring beheadings, too quick. The people demanded innovation. The emperors demanded control. And together, they built an empire where suffering became a masterpiece. Executioners evolved into artists. Victims became canvases, and every death was a stage show of divine transformation. Human bodies reshaped into symbols of power, faith, and obedience. The result? A horrifying union of beauty and brutality. These were not random acts of cruelty. Modern archaeology suggests there was an intention, a ritualistic design, behind every metallic scream. The emperors weren't just punishing, they were creating. Each execution had rules, symbolism, timing. Every movement of pain was calculated for effect. And as victims glistened beneath the scorching sun, coated in metals that shimmered like divine armor, the crowd believed they were watching gods ascend, not people die. But beneath the gold and glory there was only torment. The first of these divine transformations began with a substance the ancients believed could purify the soul, mercury. But the reality? It destroyed the mind first. Imagine being stripped bare and chained to a cold marble slab. 50,000 Romans lean forward in silence as an executioner dips a brush into a bowl of shimmering silver liquid. He begins to paint you, slowly, methodically, from neck to toe. At first, the mercury feels cool, soothing. The crowd gasps as your skin gleams under the torchlight. You look ethereal, otherworldly, a living statue. But beauty in Rome always had a price. Because within minutes, that liquid silver begins to seep into your pores. Mercury doesn't just rest on the skin, it invades it. It slides into your bloodstream, climbing toward your brain like a silent assassin. And then, the trembling begins. Your hands shake uncontrollably. Drool slips from your lips, streaked with silver. To the audience it looks divine, tears of a goddess. But inside, your nervous system is collapsing. Your heartbeat becomes erratic. Your vision flickers. Your mind unravels. Yet the executioners knew their chemistry. Too little mercury, and you'd survive. Too much, and the show would end too soon. The perfect balance kept you alive and conscious for hours. Procopius, a Byzantine historian, secretly documented these horrors in his secret histories. Hidden for centuries in monastery vaults, his words describe the spectacle in chilling detail. One woman lasted 7 hours. 7 hours of consciousness as her sanity slipped away, while a crowd mistook her agony for divine transcendence. They called these victims the Mercury Maidens, women purified through silver. But there was no purity, only a slow, metallic descent into madness. The first hour was the cruelest. The victims often thought they might survive. The mercury made them look powerful, radiant, superhuman. But the illusion didn't last. Mercury doesn't just kill the body, it erases the self. One twitch at a time, you stop being you. And as your mind dissolves into chaos, the crowd cheers, believing they're witnessing divinity. Mercury was only the beginning, because when the Romans perfected death in gold, they made even madness look merciful. Now picture this, the era of Emperor Commodus, a ruler whose ego dwarfed even Rome's marble gods. He didn't just want to rule, he wanted to create divinity, and for that he turned to gold. Cassius Dio, a Roman historian, described the ritual in words that still make modern readers shudder. The condemned are led into the arena, trembling, not from cold, but because they're soaked in something sticky, a paste made from animal fat and pine resin. Then, the artistry begins. Paper-thin sheets of gold leaf are pressed onto their bodies, layer after layer, until not an inch of flesh remains visible. Even the spaces between their fingers are sealed. Their faces vanish beneath a metallic mask of perfection. To the audience, it's breathtaking. A living human being transformed into a golden god under the scorching Roman sun. The crowd doesn't see a victim, they see a miracle. But what they don't know is that gold leaf suffocates. Skin breathes. It releases sweat, toxins, heat. When sealed under metal, it can't. Within minutes, the victim's body temperature begins to rise. The sweat trapped beneath the gold forms tiny blisters. Then, those blisters burst. Inside, the person is cooking alive, slowly, silently, while the outside glows like divine perfection. Cassius Dio wrote that victims danced their way to the underworld, but those movements weren't graceful. They were spasms, reflexes of a body desperate to survive. Each breath becomes harder, each heartbeat faster, each second hotter, until after about 23 minutes, consciousness fades. Not from pain, but from suffocation. And here's the most disturbing part. This wasn't an accident. The executioners timed it. They perfected the sequence so the crowd could witness the transformation right up until the last breath. To the Romans, this was transcendence. A mortal made immortal through art. But to us, it's a nightmare cast in gold. Even in death, the victims remained beautiful, their faces frozen, forever locked in terror, agony, or eerie serenity. The gold leaf preserved every wrinkle, every tear, every scream. Afterward, some of these death masks were removed, displayed in noble homes, temples, even art galleries. Imagine attending a Roman banquet, wine in hand, staring at the gilded face of a person who suffocated before 50,000 spectators. Commodus ordered 47 such executions. He called them his gallery of gods. Each victim was declared a new deity, a tribute to the emperor's divine power, and the public adored it. Because that's the terrifying truth about spectacle. It numbs compassion when dressed in beauty. But Rome's cruelty didn't stop there. If mercury took your mind, if gold stole your breath, then bronze. Bronze trapped your very soul. Because what archaeologists uncovered in 79 CE beneath the ashes of Pompeii changed everything. Hidden in a sealed chamber below the amphitheater, they found 12 bronze figures. At first glance, they looked like ordinary statues, aged, corroded, lifeless. But X-ray scans revealed something that sent shivers down every archaeologist's spine. Inside each statue was a skeleton, perfectly preserved. These weren't sculptures, they were people. People encased in bronze while still alive. The process was nightmarish in its precision. Victims were coated in a thick bronze paste, mixed with tree resin. It hardened slowly, giving them hours, sometimes days, of agonizing awareness. Unlike gold, the bronze layer was rigid and thick. Breathing holes were left near the nose and mouth, just enough to keep them alive. But the horror didn't end there. The mixture was designed to crack under pressure. Every movement, every breath, caused hairline fractures to appear across the surface. The crowd could literally see life struggling beneath the metal. Archaeologists found claw marks inside the shells, deep gouges where fingernails scraped at the bronze in desperation. Some victims managed to tear small holes open, only to have executioners reseal them. It wasn't just physical torment, it was psychological obliteration. The coating took up to 68 hours to harden completely. That means victims remained conscious, watching their own limbs vanish under a layer of metal. They could speak, they could beg, they could hear the crowd debate their beauty. They called this process the living bronze, and some victims, according to Roman texts, remained alive for days after their transformation was complete. One bronze figure, when examined in 1982, revealed a chilling message scratched from the inside. "I am still here. I am still human." But the true reason these executions existed wasn't just entertainment. It was ritual, religious. The Romans believed that by encasing a conscious person in metal, they could trap their soul inside, turning it into an eternal guardian bound to protect temples and emperors for all time. In other words, these weren't executions, they were offerings. And the golden and bronze statues you see in museums today, some may not be art at all. They may be the silent remnants of human beings who died believing their souls would never escape. But that's only the beginning, because when Vatican archaeologists uncovered something beneath St. Peter's Basilica in 2019, they realized the horror didn't end with Rome. What they found, what the Church tried to hide, might rewrite everything we thought we knew about divine transformation, human sacrifice, and the origins of sacred art. In 2019, beneath the towering domes of St. Peter's Basilica, Vatican archaeologists made a discovery so disturbing it was sealed away almost immediately. They had been cataloguing catacombs, routine work, nothing extraordinary. But deep beneath the basilica, they uncovered a hidden chamber, and inside they found dozens of golden and bronze figures lined neatly along the walls. At first, the team thought they were ordinary statues, ancient, beautiful, perhaps early Christian art preserved through time. But when they began scanning the figures, what they found froze them in place. Inside each one were human remains, skulls, bones, organic tissue. These weren't statues, they were bodies, bodies preserved in metal. And then came something even more chilling, fragments of parchment stored in sealed jars beside the figures. When translated, these texts revealed that these executions weren't simple punishments. They were rituals, ceremonies of divine binding. The Romans and Byzantines believed that by encasing a conscious person in precious metals, they could capture their soul, locking it forever inside the gleaming prison of gold or bronze. To them, this wasn't cruelty. It was creation. They believed they were making guardians, eternal sentinels who would watch over temples, protect sacred relics, and keep evil at bay. Imagine it. The temple doors open. The worshippers bow before rows of golden figures, beautiful, lifelike, radiant. They whisper prayers to what they think are gods, never realizing that beneath that gold, someone is still inside, still human, still conscious. The ritual texts were shockingly detailed. Each ceremony was divided into 3 phases: the preparation, the encasing, and the awakening. During preparation, the victim, often a prisoner, a slave, or a political dissenter, was cleansed in perfumed oils. They were told their suffering would earn them divinity. Priests sang hymns promising rebirth through transformation. Then came the encasing. The victim was coated with thin layers of molten or liquid metal while prayers were chanted to the god Vulcan, the deity of fire and craftsmanship. The priests believed Vulcan's forge could reshape flesh into eternity. Every chant had meaning. Every drop of metal, every motion of the brush symbolized surrendering humanity to something greater. And finally came the awakening, the moment the victim's body stopped moving but remained whole. At that instant, priests declared that the soul had been captured, transformed into a divine guardian. But here's where it gets horrifying. The texts also describe whispers that came from the statues after the ceremonies. Priests wrote of hearing faint voices echoing through the temples, pleas, prayers, sometimes screams. One record even describes a priest claiming to see a golden figure's eyes move, following him in the flicker of torchlight. He called them the Silent Watchers. For centuries, temples across the Roman world housed these figures. Some still stand today, mislabeled as sculptures of gods and heroes. But analysis of certain statues from Herculaneum, Antioch, and Constantinople shows traces of organic compounds, proteins and fatty acids that shouldn't exist in metal castings, meaning some of them may still contain human remains. But why go to such extremes? The answer lies in ancient Roman spirituality, a belief that the soul could outlive the flesh if anchored to an object. By fusing body and metal, they thought they could make immortality tangible. Yet immortality came with torment. Because the ritual demanded that the victim remain conscious during the transformation, awareness was essential. Without it, the soul couldn't be bound. That's why these ceremonies were so excruciatingly designed to prolong life for hours, even days. Every scream, every tremor, every heartbeat was a vital part of the ritual. To the priests, it wasn't cruelty, it was devotion. But as Christianity rose and the old gods fell, these rituals became heresy. The church declared them demonic, branding the practitioners as servants of darkness. And yet, the church didn't destroy them all. Some of these guardians were repurposed, moved from pagan temples into Christian cathedrals, quietly renamed as angelic statues or saints cast in metal. The Vatican archives, what little was made public, mention at least 12 bronze figures transferred from ancient shrines during the early 6th century. All of them still displayed faint traces of internal bone structure. So the question becomes, were these relics holy or cursed? Because according to those who've studied them, something strange happens near these figures. Temperature shifts, whispers caught on audio recordings, sensors picking up faint vibrations as if something inside is still moving. Modern scientists call it nonsense, but the priests who buried the truth called it blasphemy, too dangerous to confront. And they might have been right, because if these statues truly contain trapped consciousness, if they still feel, then humanity didn't just witness beauty born from agony. We created eternal suffering and called it art. But the horror doesn't stop there. Because even after the church banned the rituals, echoes of them survived. In secret monasteries, in forbidden texts, and eventually, in art itself. When Emperor Justinian outlawed metallic executions in 542 CE, he didn't do it out of mercy. He did it because the priests were terrified. Too many claimed they heard voices from the Golden Guardians. Too many said the eyes moved when no one watched. But the church's solution wasn't to destroy them. It was to hide them. The figures were sealed beneath monasteries, buried in catacombs, or melted down to erase their origins. And with them, centuries of documentation disappeared. Yet fragments of those rituals survived, hidden within illuminated manuscripts and coded inside Renaissance art treatises. Sculptors like Donatello, Michelangelo, and Bernini all studied Roman death masks to perfect their lifelike expressions. Those terrified eyes, the trembling lips, the anguish immortalized in marble, those weren't creative flourishes. They were imitations of real death. The ancient transformations may have ended, but their aesthetic lived on. For over 1,000 years, artists have been chasing the same illusion, beauty frozen at the edge of agony. The Romans perfected it through torture. The Renaissance perfected it through sculpture. The technique changed, the fascination didn't. Even today we are drawn to suffering wrapped in elegance, We romanticize tragedy. We glorify pain when it looks beautiful. Modern society still does it, through films, true crime shows, even social media. Violence becomes performance. Grief becomes content. The spectacle never really ended. The Romans just invented the template. But here's where it gets truly haunting. In 1982, researchers analyzing one of the bronze Pompeii figures discovered something they couldn't explain. A faint electrical field around the skull area, like a static pulse. When they placed a microphone near the figure, it picked up something faint. Not a voice, not exactly, but a rhythm, slow, irregular, like a heartbeat. The readings were dismissed as machine interference, but the scientists who recorded it swore the sound came from inside the metal. If that's true, then perhaps the Romans were right. Perhaps consciousness doesn't die when the body is sealed away. It lingers, waiting, watching. Next time you walk through a museum, look closely at the statues. Notice the veins carved too precisely, the eyes too lifelike, the faint texture beneath the gold or bronze. Ask yourself, was this sculpted by an artist, or was it once someone who screamed until their voice turned silent metal? Because chemical tests on several bronze castings in European collections revealed trace amounts of collagen and hemoglobin, organic markers found only in living beings, meaning at least some of these masterpieces may still hold the remnants of life within them. The Church's aggressive effort to erase this history wasn't just about morality, it was about fear. Fear that these rituals proved something they couldn't explain, something that defied theology. If a human soul could be trapped by metal, what did that mean for resurrection? For salvation? For God himself? They couldn't allow those questions to exist, so they buried them. But the silence couldn't last forever. In recent decades, art historians and archaeologists have begun piecing together what was lost, connecting the metallic executions of Rome to later secret rituals in Eastern monasteries. Even the famous crying statues of the Middle Ages may trace their origin to these ancient practices. One chilling account from a 14th century abbey describes a bronze saint whose cheeks wept clear liquid every Easter morning. When scientists examined it centuries later, they discovered that condensation had formed inside the sealed metal cavity, around something organic. They never opened it. The Church forbade it. But one archivist reportedly wrote a single line in the record: "It breathes." Maybe these are only legends. Maybe they're echoes of forgotten fears. But maybe they're warnings. Because when humanity tried to merge art with immortality, we created something neither divine nor human, something trapped between beauty and agony. A reminder that some masterpieces are meant never to be admired. So, which fate do you think was the cruelest? The silver madness that stole your mind? The golden suffocation that made your death look divine? Or the bronze imprisonment that kept your soul conscious for eternity? Each one reveals a truth about us, that beauty can blind us to horror, that if we polish suffering enough, people will cheer for it, and maybe they still do. Because the next time you stand before an ancient statue, its face frozen in eternal grace, ask yourself one question: is it art you're looking at, or something still alive beneath the metal? And if you listen closely enough, maybe you'll hear it whisper back. This was the empire that turned death into art. If you want more stories like this, dark, hidden, and beautiful in their horror, don't forget to like, comment which method haunted you most, and subscribe for the next descent into history's forgotten nightmares.